Hey guys, welcome to A Little Help for Our Friends, the podcast for people with loved ones struggling with mental health. Hello, little helpers. Today we are going to talk about explosions. Those big, messy fights that many of us have, but some people have a lot more often. And I know we all know how unpleasant they are and how sometimes scary and overwhelming they can be. So we want to talk about how to help you get out of that cycle, whether you're the exploder or your loved one is. Kibbe, going to kick it over to you because I know you've got some really big updates on this topic.
Yeah, so I got some stuff for you guys. All you little helpers dealing with emotional explosions. Two things. One is our free guide to de-escalating emotional explosions. That's like, an ebook that you can download. We'll link that in the show notes. And also, we're launching the Cool of Mind community on July 14th. And that is a place that we could all connect, and you can learn from us directly how to set boundaries, manage intense emotions, deal with crises. So in the community, there's a lot of cool things. There's a lot of resources, a lot of just courses for you to learn a little bit more and delve a little bit more into the topics that we talk about here. And there's a group course that starts July 22nd. So we're going to together learning all the skills that we talk about here. So you get a lot of support, a lot of guidance from us, and a lot of other great things. So if you sign up before July 14th, you get a 50% discount off the first month. Just go to coolamind.com, KULAMIND.com to check out a little bit more, or there's a link in the show notes where you can talk to me a little bit more about your questions or just sign up.
Amazing. How would you define an emotional explosion? I feel like different people might have really different descriptions of this.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about all different kinds of emotion dysregulation. We talked about, anxiety or shutting down or freezing. I think we're talking right now with emotional explosions in terms of anger, like conflict within a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So, we could talk about like high conflict couples and things like that. But basically, what we're talking about, it's like people who go from 0 to 60 all at once, right? Who maybe something small happens, like I know that, like, I've heard a lot of people recently talk about, like, women talking about their husbands who are struggling and who are like normally are like steady cool dudes, but lately, for example, if they correct their husband about something they were doing with the kids, like how they're bathing them or feeding them dinner, and then the husband will just snap and will just, it seems like, coming from nothing, will just like explode at the partner. I'm saying this, making this gendered because that's just who have talked to me, but there's also situations where, yeah, like some men have seen their partners with BPD or some other kind of emotion dysregulation just all of a sudden shut down and, out of nowhere just be like cold and irritable and want space, or maybe they're like flying off the handle, running away, yelling at the kids, or maybe sometimes getting violent. So I think this, what we're talking about is like this, these conflicts that just explode out of nowhere and go from, nothing to like extreme height of it really quickly.
I'm on episode 15 of the USA Love Island, which was boring for 12 straight episodes where nothing happened. And then suddenly in episodes 13 and 14, there were some explosions.
Oh
And
my God. I
hmm,
mean, don't go too much in this because one, I want to see it. And
mm-hmm.
two, we got to do an episode on Love Island. So save your gold nuggets for next episode.
Okay.
But okay,
It was a
what are
woman
the explosions
exploding.
like?
So we just to be
Okay.
fair to the boys, the women,
Mm-hmm.
the women explode.
Oh, is it good? Is it worth watching?
No, it's incredibly boring for 12 episodes. And then it was really good for 2 episodes. And now I don't know what's going to happen. But I've never seen the other
Oh,
seasons.
like You don't know what's going to happen.
Like it could go back to being
Oh,
boring.
wait, you've seen Love Island before?
No, I have not.
This is the first Love Island you've seen?
Yeah.
Oh, Jacqueline. Okay. All right. Well, then we're going to have to do a whole education for you. This is deep in the show. This is like watching Pete's season of The Bachelor and that being your introduction to the Bachelor, right? You gotta see some of the classics. So
Yeah, I do
it's
because
okay.
this season is
Offline.
not a good first, yeah, first impression.
No, and it came from the UK where, oh my God, like they seem to have no awareness of social media. They were just like unfiltered, like there was no rules or regulations. People just did all sorts of stuff. So, okay,
Cool.
we're okay. I'm getting really pulled into this topic, so we're definitely gonna have to do record about this after. But emotional explosions. Okay, what did you see in Love Island that looked like an explosion?
Um, a woman being upset that her man did not show that he was like valuing her. Like other guys were taking their girls on date. I mean, they were like making little surprises and hers wasn't. And she exploded on him. I feel like for that, but then there was this over time, they started off really strong and she clearly like really bought into the relationship and I think thought it was going to solve all of her woes, you know. And then over time he started getting annoyed with her. And then then there was this very dramatic scene where like America votes and they kind of got like separated and she almost got sent home. And then he didn't go comfort her, which was fucked up, in fairness. Like, he didn't check in on her at all after she almost got sent home and like, you know, and like they got like separated. But what made it explode, I mean, it was extremely ineffective communication, you know? I mean, she's like, first of all, exploding behind his back, but he can hear it, calling him a bitch, like calling him names and everything. And then the next day they got really into it and she was like, you know, like kind of like stalking him up and down the villa and like screaming like, fuck you, you're a bitch. You're a fucking bitch at him and stuff like that. It was really enjoyable to watch
I can't wait.
after 12 boring episodes.
What is it with us who like is it what's wrong with us? I feel like when I hear that, I'm like, ooh, give me more of that. And like I really like drama. You like drama too.
Yeah,
But not as
nice.
I don't know if as much as I do, but like I just love emotional explosions. Why is that? Like I'm gonna
Um,
like we're gonna
I
teach people in Cool Mind
I'll
how to
just
like regulate them,
yeah.
but I also kind of like love it, you know? Like
Yeah. Well, I mean, for one thing, I would say like I enjoy them less maybe on shows like The Bachelor, where it's more about actually getting to know the people and having like watching them have deeper conversations and like actually having integrity is kind of
yeah.
important to the show because you're watching a love story. Love Island is like a lot of extremely shallow people, and you're not like listening to anything. You're not really buying into it for the same reasons. Like I think you're just wanting to see drama. But in terms of why we like drama, I mean, I think a um I don't know. Let me try to think of some things. I mean, one, it can be kind of cathartic to see somebody else do the thing you're not allowed to do. I'm not going to explode on somebody. I'm not. I know that's going to backfire, you know. So, watching somebody else do it is kind of interesting. But I think that we're a social species, and we are always looking to learn social lessons and emotional lessons. And watching somebody else's catastrophic mistakes can be A, it can reassure us that we are doing a good job, and B, I don't know, I think there's something organizing for us about seeing like cause and effect of people's like fucked up behavior. And but it's also just drama, right? Like there's no reality TV we might think is like a there's something shameful about liking that drama, but if it were, you know, an Oscar nominated movie, it would also have all the elements of coming together and conflict and breaking apart and defeating obstacles and all of that. So I think there's part of it that's just conflict's interesting.
think you're right. I think you're making a really good point that about the social norms and what's taboo. And it's interesting, as you just said that, I remember my boyfriend years and years ago, who I remember we were watching a lot of uh, British shows,
Hmm.
and I just was so surprised by how all of them. I mean, if you even watch like the British, The Office, it really is like someone doing something awkward or saying the wrong thing or
Yeah.
upsetting people. And I was like, why? And they didn't resolve it. They didn't go, oh, he's actually a nice guy. It's just like, here's some awkward, socially, like, mind blind man. And I was like, why are all British shows like this? And he said, well, we spend so much time trying not to be like trying to be socially adept or restrained that when it's cathartic to see someone messing up.
Yeah.
And that it's a really interesting point about anger and explosions and dysregulation in America because a lot of people are really angry, right? Like politically, socially, just I don't know, like just in the face of a lot of uncertainty and a lot of change, a lot of
Hmm.
people feel angry and left out and unseen, right? They feel like forgotten, so they feel angry about it. And then, but the expression of anger is pretty taboo in the US. I mean, we're probably like a lot spicier than other cultures, definitely like compared to like British or Japanese or whatever. But we, I was trying to think of like different ways that we could express anger in like healthier ways. And there really is a very small, narrow tolerance for it, right? We quickly go to that's toxic, that's abusive, that's wrong, that makes you a bad person.
Hmm.
Um, and so there's a lot of suppression of anger. And then
Yeah.
maybe just that tension of holding that in for so long makes explosions a lot more like much more common, right? Like when you suppress emotion, you get a lot more of like outburst when it builds
Hmm.
up. And then it reinforces that cycle, right? When someone bursts out suddenly and in dramatic ways, everyone's upset about it. So maybe
Hmm.
the whole like emphasis on suppression and control of anger is really like why we're all like exploding all over the place.
Yeah. I mean, I think when you like, I feel like I have gotten pretty punished every time I've expressed anger,
Hmm.
even more than just like a 3% level.
Hmm.
Like if I have a tone, if I'm frustrated, right? Like I know I'm gonna lose ground. I know it's gonna backfire. It's and I do, and I'm sensitive to it, right? Like I don't like having anger directed at me either. And I don't know if I would feel differently about it if I felt like I could express anger sometimes and not be left or, have to do so much cleanup afterwards. But I do think like in a society where you're not really supposed to express anger, it can also feel especially threatening and scary if you receive it. Because it's like, "Oh, we don't do this here. Like,
Hmm.
what did I do to have, engendered this response in you?"
Hmm.
And yeah, I mean, reality TV is like one place we go to see it, but it's not like it goes down well there.
Yeah. I mean, that's the place that we could do public shaming, right? Like, she exploded, like, oh, out of control, right? They're wrong automatically. Um, yeah, I mean, I've talked about my anger, my relationship with anger, and how I'm a more like aggressive or angry person.
Mhm.
I even like oh, I classify myself, right? Identify with the anger. But when I was in high school and younger, when I was dealing with a lot of like childhood chaos, I mean, I was emotionally explosive. I definitely met criteria for BPD when I was in high school. I mean, I
Mm.
had a boyfriend who we were so explosive and high conflict that it was just like every day was a drama. It really we would have screaming fights on the street. I would like collapse into tears in the middle of like New York City. We'd be in cabs and get into an argument, and one person would like run out at a stop sign. I mean, like really, like I remember we had a fight once, and he was so mad at me that we got to a stoplight, and he was like, "Fuck you," and literally left the cab, like ran out of the cab, and just like
Hmm.
completely explosive. And like anger feels good sometimes. Like when you
Hmm.
have like that's like the expression of anger is reinforcing because it feels good to get real, like, to scream, to yell, to like to there's a feeling of like 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 ooh, that was energizing. Like I got something off my chest. It
Absolutely.
has like this relieving and energizing feeling to it. So that's why I like
Yeah.
drama, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of thankful that this episode is not going to be about me for once, because I feel like it's been a lot of me talking recently. But that relationship did sound a little bit like my relationship from 10 years ago, where he would explode on me in the middle of the street and I'd be sobbing and he'd like pretend to stalk away at 3 in the morning and I'd be like, I was like 22 years old, had no money. And so I was just sort of like smiling at that because it's in the past.
It just occurred to me how similar those ex-boyfriends were. I mean, we've always talked about them, but they're similar. They're both like running companies, like like founders. They're both like
Hmm.
handsome, wealthy, maybe
Yeah,
narcissistic
except that
men.
yours was 18 and mine was 38 at the time.
Yeah,
So yours had a little bit of a better
yep.
excuse.
Yeah,
But
totally.
yours
That's
was
true.
also a
That's
legit
true.
psycho. I mean, in terms of throwing gophers off mountains and stuff. Um, Usually I shy away from using the term psycho in a mental health podcast, but if you are going to throw gophers off of a mountaintop, I think I'm going to bring back that term.
Oh my God.
um,
Did I ever talk about the worst blow up we had on this
I just know the
podcast?
one
I
in.
almost like don't want to talk about it because it's so shameful for me.
No, I mean I just know about the one in
Oh my
Italy where
God.
he said that you punched him or whatever, and everyone wanted you to leave, and then they drove you to the airport, and then he was like, "Just kidding, that was all fake." So I know
Oh
about.
yeah, that was that fight. Yeah, I'll talk about both of those. So the one in Italy, yeah, that fight was when we were in like another screaming fight, and um, he called his family and spoke in a different language and was like, basically, I didn't know this at the time, but was saying like, she broke my nose,
Hmm.
um, and the family, it's actually unclear if he was actually on the phone because he was like, oh, he got off the phone and was like, okay, they're booking you on a flight tomorrow back home, and they never
Yeah,
want to see you again. And I was like, I saw like what? I was like so confused. I was like crying and stuff. And yeah, the next day we packed up my suitcase and you know started to hail a taxi to get to the airport. And then he turned around and was like, that didn't really happen. They don't know anything.
that's some
I was
psycho
just
shit.
kidding. Yeah. So there was that, and then, and then in high school, and this is really one of my most like embarrassing stories. So it's actually like rough to talk about it, but we had been so high conflict, like so dramatic, so explosive, publicly, that all of our friends, seen it. And we were all like, our whole senior class was um, on this like major spring break trip.
Hmm.
And so we were all together, all partying. And he and I had a dinner at some point, and he was like, I think you have mental health issues. And I was like, yeah, I think I do. I've been very depressed. I like feel kind of out of control. Like I feel horrible all the time. I don't know what to do. And he was really like supportive. He was like, I love you. I want to help you through this. I understand that you've been struggling and we've been fighting as a result, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah. And so we talked about like how I'll get more like get talk to a psychiatrist. I don't know. Like we just talked about it, right? Like
Yeah.
he was like, you need help. And so and then we were in the middle of the lobby with all of our friends, and we were planning on, whatever bar we're going to go to. And we got into an argument, and then he stepped back and screamed, "You're mentally ill and bipolar and ruined my life because of it."
Mm.
And everyone turned around and looked at me, and
Mm-hmm.
I was frozen. I was like, I mean, talk about like shame. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
what the like I just opened up to like, and but first, and then I'm like, bipolar disorder. That's not, I don't have that. But no shame to people who do. But I was just, like it just was like he
Mm-hmm.
just like screamed at me and was like, and then kept going. He kept like, "You're insane. You admitted it. This is why everyone
That's
thinks you're crazy." Like just
fucked
like
up.
public shaming.
Yeah.
Really fucked up. And then I was frozen, and then everyone left, and then I really like I blanked out. I went into this like fugue state where I was
Mm-hmm.
like, I need to talk to you. And I pulled him to the side and I slapped him as hard as I could. I
Mm-hmm.
really like popped him one across the face. Which was terrible. Like terrible, terrible. I regret that to this very day. It was like my worst moment of my life. Like I just slapped him so hard that
Mm-hmm.
it even left a mark on his face. Like it like made like side of his face red.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then everyone saw that,
Mm-hmm.
and rumors abound. And to this day, this is one of the reasons why I like don't go to like high school reunions. I don't like to be in touch with people from high school because people like, you know, saw my craziest, lowest moment where I just lost control of my emotions. So there we go. That's my
I mean,
explosive moment.
I'm sorry you feel so much shame about that. Obviously, like we can't condone physical violence or anything. It's also interesting though. I feel like if that were a scene in a movie, everyone would be like rooting for you. Like we have different expectations on screen versus in reality. But I mean, he emotionally slapped the shit out of you. I mean, I don't blame you for being that angry.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely blame myself for how I handled it.
Hmm.
I spent so much time learning skills to manage that and manage anger. And then I also recognized looking back that there were many things that he was doing to like set me off.
Hmm.
This is hard to say because it's like I don't want to say, well, it's his fault or he's responsible for the way I acted. But looking back, he I don't know if he sometimes intentionally looked like he was trying to get a rise out of me. Like that night seemed weird. Like I'm saying like a dinner 2 minutes before where we're talking and he was like being so comforting and empathetic, and then like launching into everything we talked about very publicly and shaming. And then he would also say other things other times, like that he prayed that my plane would crash, and then like when I would cry at that he would laugh at me. So just stuff like that where like i I think that I was emotionally volatile, and then there was dynamics that I'm trying to be as professional and balanced as possible, but like it was pretty bananas. Like
That's not normal.
no, it wasn't. No, actually, like when I started crying when he told me he wished that I would die in a plane crash, he was like, "Why are you so sensitive? God, this is why you have all these problems. You're so sensitive." I was just kidding.
Um, I mean, I'm so sorry you got that shame and like fuck that guy. I mean, that's just not normal behavior. I mean, I'm not allowed to say he deserved it, but it's hard for me not to think it.
I mean, this person is now becoming a wildly successful startup CEO, so just
Legit.
keep that in mind, guys, when you look on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
sorry, getting deep. All right, let's, like get professional. Like, what causes blowups?
Okay, yeah. So what causes blowups? So I think it's a difficult question to answer. I mean, I think there are like things that one person can do that can make it blow up more likely in the other person, but it's hard to put that all on them. I mean, I think a lot of times people have blow-ups because, they don't have skills, or maybe they are from a culture where it's more acceptable. Um, or it's what was modeled for them, right? Or it's, like I saw a couple where, I work at the VA, and like there were a lot of explosions, in part just because like after you are in the military, especially in combat, your baseline nervous system is like, I mean, your blood pressure is, high, right? So if you are like in PTSD, right, there are a lot of blowups because your nervous system is already so frayed, and like you're ready for, like attack at any time, that it just takes a millisecond to like, it just takes a little something to like put you over the edge. So I mean, I think there are tons of different reasons for it, and some are more acceptable than others. I mean, I have to say, like we're talking about how it doesn't feel like socially acceptable in America to explode or to express anger, but it's hard to argue with a little bit, because a lot of times anger is expressed more vociferously. It involves name calling or aggression, like aggressive posturing, right? Or like shouting over another person. So it's kind of hard to like think of, you know, are we suppressing it too much, or is it because like those behaviors are pretty not okay? I don't know.
Yeah, and I'm wondering why it's so hard for us to get angry and not get to low blows. Like how, like why is it so hard? Like what we're really talking about here is a lot of people will get angry with each other for behavior, right? Like
Mm.
I was upset at the things that he said in public in front of our friends.
Mhm.
Um, and it when you get that explosive, it could feel like this person's bad and I'm fighting against a bad person. I'm fighting against a bad
Yeah.
guy, right? And like
Yeah.
instead of being like I'm angry at what you did, it really can become like you're toxic, you're a bad person, right? Like so it gets into these bigger levels where it's just like almost like it feels like defending your honor or values or personhood against someone else's who is like a threat to that.
Yeah, I mean, well, when you're angry, I mean, there is a dehumanizing element to it, I think.
Hmm.
Like if you feel entitled to explode at another person, then it seems as though you feel entitled to aggress against them in some way,
Hmm.
to make them small, to assert your dominance over them.
Mm.
And
A
I don't
power.
know how, yeah, I mean, I think that, making character attacks is a natural consequence of, feeling like you're justified in behaving that way.
Hmm.
Um, but
That's
yeah, and
interesting.
and there also might be some catharsis in saying the little thoughts that you always have to push down because they're not quite justifiable, or they're not quite effective enough. And so just being able to unleash them all is like, that is what feels good. I mean, I think you can certainly effectively express anger, but I don't know that you can effectively explode. I don't know.
Yeah. 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 The whole like, I mean, emotions love themselves. And as soon as you feel something, it like your
Mhm.
mind will just attach to all the different things that will confirm that feeling.
Mhm.
So when I'm angry at this behavior, it quickly becomes, you always do this, and your mind will figure out and
Yeah.
fixate on all the things that are in line with that behavior to show that it's a pattern. And then it shows a character trait. You are always doing this. You are crazy. You are whatever. And then it just like amplifies the anger, so you feel like more justified instead of being like, what you said really hurt my feelings to this degree.
Yeah.
um yeah, so the power thing is interesting too. I feel like maybe this is Americans, maybe this is everywhere in the world, but like the idea of what we have power over or control over is really, really tough. Like it's, do you have control over your job? Do you have control over whether people are racist against you or not? Do you have control over your relationships and your children? Like, do I have control over my future and whether we could afford a house or get into World War III? Like, there's a lot of things that we're like there are, we get a sense that there's like powers that be, aka the government or whatever, that feel out of our control, and it's really
Mhm.
hard for understand what is our in control. What is in our control is sometimes like the people who we're attached to, right? Like
Mhm.
sometimes it feels like some people mistake it for intimacy, where like I can be my true self around this person, like
Right.
this partner, my wife, my kids, or whatever. Like I have to perform and keep it all in the world, but I can really let loose and be my true, like, unfiltered self around my family, which means
Mhm.
that I'm like sometimes the worst self around them. So
Yeah.
the explosions sometimes are confused as like I could be my authentic self around these people.
Yes. I think Linehan did a good job flipping the script on that, where she made wise mind your true self. She
Mm,
made like, your wisdom, right? Your best self, your true self.
mm,
And is like, these other parts of you, that's maybe like emotion running a show or something, but that's not actually the values led, like, um, you know, like I wouldn't say that me exploding in rage is my true self. I would say that like me being the person that makes me proud of myself is my true self because it's who I want to be, it's who I strive to be,
right.
it's who I believe in, right? But I do think that yeah, a lot of people feel like the ultimate would just be able to like not have to think about how you present or are in relation to others. Um, and I mean, there's something to that. Like, that's more maybe who I am with like my mom, maybe. Like, I can be more annoying to her than other people, but I don't really know that that feels like my true self. That just feels like I have permission to be kind of a dick sometimes because she'll love me anyway.
I mean, but that's interesting. That's interesting, like how people feel like their base emotions or the unfiltered emotion, unregulated emotions that feels like who they authentically are. And I
Right.
think that there's research that talks about authenticity, and a lot of people, when they're asked, "What's my authentic self?" they will say, my authentic self is the way I act and who I am when I don't have to think about it, when I don't have to like control or manage or exert effort to be. It's just like a spontaneous, almost like
Hmm.
automatic behavior. And for a lot of people, that is just the way they are when they're like emotional, when they feel like a kid,
Right.
where they feel like, and the whole like, how can I express my anger in ways that is effective and balances like compassion for the other person? That could feel like not their true self because it's like effortful, right?
Right.
But I think you're right that like these long-term goals and values are also who we are authentically. But anyway,
I mean,
that's
I kind of have these questions about when people say masking, like I have to mask a lot. I'm like, well, duh. I mean, is that a bad thing though? Like, what are we, and like I appreciate internal family systems too for saying like, no, we're a series of parts. And the true self, there's a sense of the true self there too, but it is also the self that is more connected with maturity, values. Um, the like if we think about right, like are we more our true selves when we are inhabiting our prefrontal cortex or our lizard brain, like our amygdala, like what people say? And I think most people would say the PFC, but yet, yeah. And of course, it is great to feel natural and be natural with another person, but
mm,
that feels different than the being entitled to just unleash.
yeah. Yeah, maybe I'm just affected by conversations I've had with our clients who have said who struggle with a partner with emotion dysregulation, who have anger outbursts,
Hmm.
and they'll be like, the way you exploded on me was awful. Like, can you do something different? And then the partner who's more explosive will be like, well, now I can't be my true self. Now you're saying that I can't express my feelings, right? And
Yeah.
like my feelings are, and now I have to hold myself in. Um, so it's just interesting to think about like how some explosive and high conflict couples or just like
Yeah.
explosive relationships are about like, oh, I feel like I could just, I'm here and like a fan, I have a fantasy and wish that you would love me so much that I can act however I wanted to and you will still love me and be here, right?
Yeah. I mean, that sounds great, but I mean, really think about like what an explosion is. I mean, working with couples, like high conflict couples, if I have, a couple where like the man explodes a lot, then there are nervous system consequences at the very least
Mm-hmm.
for the other partner. I'm choosing man here because men are like physically bigger and have the like ability to aggress more. And so I think this is just like a better illustration of my point. But obviously it can work both ways. But if you've got a 6'3" giant dude yelling at you, right? Like, even if they're not saying anything insulting, then that's going to really dysregulate the other person's nervous system. It's going to throw them into fight or flight or freeze, really, probably more likely. It's going to make it really hard to feel safe. And is that what it means to be yourself? Like, who, is that what you want your partner accepting and like loving about you, right? Is your ability to make her feel scared and threatened?
Yeah.
I mean, it's
I
up,
mean,
Mhm.
doing what you did before, to be fair to the men, um, I have a previous study that shows that men and women are equally likely to perpetrate intimate partner violence, but we
Mm.
might not. It might have a different like impact on the partner if like a small woman is like slapping their husband
Right.
versus like a 6'3" or man. But yeah, I think I just imagine that if you're in a close relate like that attachment bond, not just like a friend or someone you're dating, but like I'm married to them, this is my family now. You might have this fantasy of what you would get from a parent, which, oh my God, now my son is like in tantrum city, like he is now pushing the boundaries, and
Yeah.
he was like thrash and kick and scream when he doesn't get what he wants. And I'm not gonna, I'm not scared. I'm not like, I'm kind of overwhelmed, but I gotta love him. I'm loving him and I'm staying steady and I'm staying there for him, like through the ups and downs. Right. And
Yeah.
so you're kind of like, oh, that's what love should be, or that's what I want to get, is this unconditional, I can act out and explode and you'll still love me and be there.
Yeah. I mean, and this brings me, we've had this conversation so many times, right? Where I don't, but like, I think what
Right.
people are looking for is parental love. And I think a lot of people who haven't had good parental love, it fucking sucks because they are missing out on something. They are missing out on what it's like to know that you could explode. And I mean, I like, I do this Instagram poll and I ask Jason this all the time. It's like, if your kid murdered someone, would you turn them in or help them hide the body? Like, parents, like the idea that you could do the worst of human behavior and still be loved, like that is special. Um, I just don't think it's appropriate for our partners or
Yeah.
friends.
Yeah. I think you're right. So, what are the different things that can escalate conflict? Like, what are the missteps besides for screaming about my mental health status in front of my entire senior class? Um, what else could possibly lead to an explosion?
Yeah, it means so many things. The big ticket item is character attacks. I mean, that's going to be
Yeah,
the fastest one to get there. But I also think like explaining people's behavior to them can be really
bad.
unpleasant.
Like
Yeah,
what?
like
Because that's what
um
we tell people to
no, I mean
to
I mean like I mean like you came home late because you don't care about me.
oh, like making like inferences and like making like
Yeah.
like accusatory
Yeah.
or making accusations and what do you call it? Like interpretations based on their behavior.
Yeah. But that's not necessarily, I mean, that's kind of a character attack, but it's not necessarily a character attack. It could be like
Yeah.
like you talk to that girl at the bar because like you're losing interest in me or something. Like that's not a character attack, but it would still kind of piss the other person off if it's not true. Um, so I just think like explaining people's behavior to them using your own interpretation is just opens the door for that person to then say, no, that's not true. And like, how dare you tell me who I am or like why I do the things that I do.
Hmm. It's I'm trying to I'm trying to think about this on the spot. It's like this shift, this mindset shift of going from we're working towards a solution to a problem
Hmm.
together, like a collaborative problem solving mindset, to one
Right.
of like war, of like this is my enemy and
Hmm.
this enemy is here as a threat to what I believe in, who I am, what I stand for, right? It's like you don't care about me, right? That's different than like when you do this, I feel this, it makes me feel this, like what I want is that, right? That's like a problem solving, let's work through it versus
Hmm.
like I've slammed the door. I am characterizing you as a person who is on the outs and I'm going to treat you as such.
Hmm.
Right? I'm trying to think about like what happens when people explode that deeply and dehumanizes the other person.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is why shame is such an easy trigger for explosions
Mm,
because shame feels when you feel shame, you feel as though you are dehumanized, and so in order to right the scales again, right, then you have to like tear down the other person. So anything that's going to elicit shame, you should be careful about, basically, about how you go about that. Um, I think traditionally we tell people to make I statements, but I statements even can look really different depending on what they are, right? Like the I statement, I feel like you don't care about me is better than you don't care about me, but it also kind of just puts an I feel in front of the statement about the other person explaining their behavior. um, I think a more obvious one would be like, I feel like you're inconsiderate, or I feel like you were being inconsiderate. It's better than saying you were definitely objectively inconsiderate, but it still is going to like bring up shame in the other person. Um, ChatGPT gave a good example where instead of being like, I feel disrespected when you cut me off, saying, I feel disrespected when I'm cut off, or something like that.
mm,
So it keeps the focus on the I instead of bringing in the other person. Now, obviously, like you can't never call out another person for their behavior. You can't be that perfect all the time, but as much as you can, I think keeping it to your side of the street is going to be helpful.
hmm. Yeah, the side of the street is so subtle because there's different ways to do it. It's not just the words, it's also like tone and intention.
Hmm.
Where this I statement, which is, a solution to the conflict, is um is I'm gonna own my side of it, right? And
Hmm.
I'm gonna acknowledge that I have a side of it, but also acknowledge that you also have a side of it. So if I say, I feel like you don't care about me, versus like, when you do this, it brings up all the stuff in me. It makes me feel like like you don't care about me, and
No, you
I
just
like.
added more words
No,
to
I know, and
it.
I'm trying to like shift the way I'm thinking about it, where I'm just completely owning it
Right,
versus
right.
like saying,
Let's say you don't hear back from somebody for a while, right? So
hmm
instead of I feel like you didn't respond to me because you don't care about me, or like I feel like you don't care about me when you don't respond, it could be when people don't respond to me, I can feel insecure that they don't like me or they don't
hmm
want me or something like that, right? Like it's about me. The other
hmm.
person can't argue with that.
I mean, we could also make it more precise in the relationship, where it's like when you don't call me I wonder if you even care.
Hmm.
And where my mind goes to, thoughts about like you not caring about me, right? Because
Yeah.
it might be, we, we don't want to. You don't want to take it too far and be like, I'm an insecure person. And when,
Yeah.
for everyone who does this, not just you, don't worry about it, right? It's like, no,
Yeah.
no, no. Like this is the pattern and this is how I'm reacting to it.
Hmm. I mean, yeah, it's just like it's not wrong to say, when you do this, I feel like you don't care about me. Like,
Hmm.
that might need to be said. It's just that if your aim is to not bring up explosiveness or defensiveness in the other person, keeping it on your side of the street as much as possible is going
Hmm.
to benefit that. But
Yep.
sometimes making another person mad is okay, right? Like it's worth it, basically. They need to know how their behavior affects you.
Hmm. Another thing that I was thinking about that leads to explosions and leads to like this really intense anger.
Mm,
I'm trying to work it out loud right now, but the feeling that you could do something about it, like the helplessness and the feeling you don't have agency and this is just the way it is and it's bad,
yeah.
for me leads to so much more intense emotion. I'm thinking about like conflicts that I have with my mother. And I've said several times, like the way you say things or the way you like curse me out when blah blah blah, like that really upset me and made me like not want to see you.
Hmm.
And I try to do all my clinical skills of like
Hmm.
validating blah blah, pointing out to the direct behavior. But my hypothesis is that she doesn't have enough awareness or control over her behavior, to see that this is something that she can change and do something
Hmm.
about, because she'll be like, well, then you just hate me, you just hate who I am. And I will say, no, I hate what you did or I hate what you said. But
Yeah.
if you don't feel like that you can really have control over something, like if you don't feel like the way you
Hmm.
say things is a skill or something you could work on, you might take that as a little bit more of an attack of my personhood, because it feels like something I just am and I can't
Yeah.
control, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Hmm. I think, yeah, for sure. Um, I would feel, I'd probably feel that way about like ADHD type stuff, where
I
I'm
was
just
thinking
like,
if I said like you come late to things versus like you have ADHD, right? Those are the two different like I imagine that it would lead to two different reactions in you of like, either helplessness of like I'm being attacked. I don't know. You tell me. You
I mean,
come late to things. You have
I was,
ADHD.
I do think that, I think that like emotional immaturity really can leave some people helpless to change their behavior. And so when that behavior is called out, it can feel really threatening. Um, and it can feel like a character attack because maybe it kind of is. Maybe that behavior is kind of part of your current character. Like if you don't have the ability to change it, then I don't know, maybe that's who you are. And for I personally believe if you work hard with a therapist, yes, you can change it. But I can see how it would feel like that's as good as it's going to get. And I think ADHD can kind of feel like that sometimes, right? Like, um, if people are getting mad at me for being disorganized all the time, then I can start feeling helpless about that and feeling like, yeah, there's not that much I can do about it. Of course, there is, but it can feel as though there's not that much I can do about it. And then I might be more sensitive to it or something.
That's interesting.
But I don't think that shame is the only reason people get mad at other people, right? Like I think unfairness is a big one. If I blame you for something I do all the time, that's not necessarily going to make you feel ashamed, but it might piss you off because you're like, how dare you?
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. To be blamed for, yeah, to have double standards or unfair
Hmm.
standards. Yeah, definitely. And also like we talk a lot about this, but invalidation, right? It's like when you are at such a high level of emotion. Does this happen any other place? I think anger is one of those things, like fights are one of those things that it really can. bounce off someone else's anger. Like you really escalate each other's anger quickly. Because I'm
Uh-huh.
thinking about any other emotion. Like if I'm feeling really ashamed, it's not necessarily going to trigger shame in you, right? If I'm like, oh, I feel so embarrassed, you're not going to be like, me too now. Like, it's like, but like, I think anger is one of those things that it's just like, because it's like this fight,
Uh-huh.
response, it
Uh-huh.
could really like bounce off each other really quickly and explode. And when that happens, then you're both at max dysregulation, like intense levels of emotion, of the same emotion.
Yeah.
And when we know when we're in intense emotion, we turn our attention inwards. So we are more thinking about survival and how do I feel better than like, oh, it's two of us and we're and like let me think flexibly about your perspective, my perspective. It's like, no, no, no. My mind is narrowing on what's going to make me feel better. So
Yeah.
you have two people just like focusing on themselves, like at each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, that's why the reframe of like it's us against the problem is so much healthier than like it's us, it's me against you. If you
Mm.
can figure out even the reframe into, and I saw this in your notes, but like um, the reframe into it's us against the problem of our communication,
Mm.
which is different than like it's us against our housing crisis. It's like this is about us. Like it is about
Yeah.
how we're bad to, how we're not effective in communication with each other, but still it can be reframed to, oh gosh, we love each other, but this thing comes up between us that's so hard to figure out, and here it is again, and like let's like work on that.
Yeah, that was a like a little nugget of wisdom from emotionally focused therapy and family systems therapy, like
Mm-hmm.
couples and family therapy, is framing it like you're dealing with a common enemy, which is one of
Mm-hmm.
the strategies for getting people to bond is get another common enemy.
Yeah.
So the idea of like instead of you're the problem, but this cycle is the problem. This
Mm-hmm.
dynamic is the problem. How do we break this together, right? Oh, the cycle's here again. Let's battle against that instead of each other. I
Yeah.
think it's nice.
Mm-hmm. What are other reasons? So I think unfairness is a big one. I think that we as a species, even though life is inherently unfair, there is something in us that's important to keep trying to right the scales of justice to make sure that, because if we can, I think, have as fair of a society as possible, then, that's probably a good thing. And so I think we can balk at that. I also think sometimes we can just get mad that something isn't changing.
Hmm.
Um, like an example from Love Island was this guy who did not get explosive, but he did clearly like stop liking her, and get like pissed. She was just always like kind of nagging him about a certain thing, or like always treating him. She'd be like, "Good boy, like good job," as if he was like a little kid. And I don't think that actually brought up shame in him. I think that that was just straight up pissing him off. Like, you're not going to treat
Yeah.
me that way. You're not stopping. I feel dogged and like pursued in a way. Like I can't, this thing won't go away. It's like, if a mosquito keeps biting you, you're going to get pissed. So sometimes there's just that problem.
Yeah, I mean, we could talk about we talked about this before, but bringing up the Gottman, John Gottman, the couples researcher, and this four horsemen. Four horsemen are the things that like ruin a relationship, and it's criticism, defensiveness, contempt, and stonewalling. So these are all different ways of not letting the other person in, like shutting the person out, but also, especially contempt and criticism, also defensiveness. But these are all things of that is are all different ways that people might put the bad stuff in the other person, like blame the other person for all the bad.
Hmm.
And then because of that, you become like superior. So it's like these power dynamics that we talk about where if
Yeah.
if like you're saying like good boy, good that really that's like it's a little contempt, right? That might be like nice, but it really does communicate like I think I'm better than you. I'm above
Hmm.
you and you're not
Hmm.
equal to me. you have all
Right.
the bad stuff that I have to correct, and I'm the voice of reason.
Yeah.
So that's a really, quick way to ignite some fires.
hmm Yeah, it's like I never want to tell my friends that I'm proud of them because that feels like it's
Hmm.
me, you know what I mean? So I'll usually say like I'm impressed or something like they just like change it to more of a relationship of equals.
That's interesting.
But yeah, kind of the same. Like I don't want to suggest that I was like waiting around for you to like prove yourself or something, and now I'm like it's just a parental kind of yeah superior
Or
kind of.
even worse, like a boss, right? Like
Right.
I'm in charge of telling you how to behave, right?
hmm
So, um, and that could really that I see that dynamic a lot with families, like these married couples with kids, where the mother, or even like other, father, but like someone who is more in the parent role and the one like managing the
hmm
family activities. And then because of that, there's this power dynamic. There's a head of the household where someone's like organizing the activities and figuring out the right way to discipline. And then the other parent kind of gets lumped into like a hierarchy where they all have to
hmm
listen to the boss. And um, that might be the case because that's just like the emotional labor of women. But then what does that leave the men? That it makes them like second in command,
Yeah.
which feels shitty. Like even if it's for a good thing, like getting dinner done.
Yeah, I mean, there are interesting consequences to gender equality, right? Like in the past, the man being the head of the household, I think maybe
Hmm.
like companies typically work better if there's one leader, but too bad. Like that's not how it works anymore. So we got to figure out how to have a two-leader household.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, so those kind of power plays or positioning yourself above another person is going to probably piss your partner or friend off pretty quickly.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, and so like if you're in an explosive relationship, like think about like, do you really are you the one that is in charge of teaching? Like, do you believe that you're in the role of teaching the other person how to do it the right way? Like,
hmm
even that belief, sometimes I've heard, like, oh, they get upset that when they make dinner, um, like they feel like they can never do it right, but like they don't do it right. Am I right? I'm like, yeah, but that's gonna feel bad, right? That's gonna feel like then the other person's gonna get angry and defensive, right? If you
I mean,
think
an
that you house
explosion,
the right way.
yeah, I mean, an explosion is a reassertion of power. I
Mm,
mean,
that's
because you
really
are,
interesting. I like that.
I mean, I think so. I don't think I can poke a hole in it. You are aggressing towards the other person in a sense. Like you are making yourself big and intimidating. That to me feels like an assertion of power. Um, and that could come if you feel like you need to like punish your inferior, or it can feel like you are the inferior and so you need to like reassert yourself and like, right the scales. Never works, but
I like
or
this.
maybe
I like
maybe
this.
it works, but
I like this like reframe of explosion, of reassertion of power, because it really does fit in with how powerless a lot of people feel right now, and why they're
Mhm.
getting like explosive. It's kind of like how I felt that like that little nugget that we landed on with entitlement about like that all social interactions are a transaction and an agreement between two people, and entitlement is like I want to get what I want to get the things out of you, but I don't want to do the things that I agree to you. So great, love it. Well, I mean, we already went through a bunch of tips about how to, kind of like soften emotional explosion. One is like the true I statement, not just like I'm sorry you feel that way, or like, but a real like owning your side.
Or like
But
I
the
feel like you're an
Gottman,
asshole. Like that's not a nice
I just
statement.
yeah, I feel like you're a toxic person. I said an I statement. Good for me.
Yeah.
Good boy. Um, but the Gottman method, we'll talk about the different ways, the antidotes to the four horsemen. So instead of criticism, like coming at someone with criticism and blame for why they did something wrong, but you could
hmm
use a gentle startup, which is kind of what I statements so we talked about before. Instead of being like, it's all your fault. It's like, when you did this thing, I felt really hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Instead of defensiveness, taking responsibility, owning your part, like even if it's like a kernel of truth, like even a small kernel of truth, but like, I get that the way I said things really hurt your feelings, even though I didn't mean to.
Yeah.
Or like, I did make a mistake. I didn't mean to do this thing to hurt your feelings, right?
Mm-hmm.
Contempt, the antidote is appreciation, right? Thinking about and expressing why you appreciate and respect your partner. I mean, when someone's really pissed off and really resentful, like, that might be hard to access because you might be thinking of all the things, but it really is a good exercise to be like, why do I appreciate this person? What are they good at? What do they do for me? What do they do for the family? And really expressing it. I'm one of my patients said, "What? I'm supposed to just like thank my husband for doing the dishes like I do every night?" I'm like, yeah, like,
Yeah.
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 I mean, what
Husbands
does
are
it cost you to
puppies.
say thank you? What?
Husbands are puppies. So are wives. Everyone's just a puppy. It needs to be trained. Positive reinforcement works.
Oh yeah, yeah. I thought you were dipping into the Love Island strategy of like, good boy, good job, or
Oh no.
which is which is
Well,
not
I
what you
mean,
want to do.
it's just like if, I would do it more with gratitude rather than good job, good boy. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think like with criticism, it just depends on how far down the line you are. Like, I think Jason will sometimes maybe like criticize my organization or cleanliness through like humor, which does not rankle me, right? Like, but that also might not be completely effective for getting me to change because I'm like, he thinks I'm cute and funny because I'm so bad at things. but, but anyway, if you want to just draw somebody's attention to something and be like, yeah, so this is actually how you do it, then I think humor can be a good way
Yeah, that is a good one, using
to keep it
humor.
gentle lead in.
Yeah, yeah, gentle startup and like humor in a really nice collaborative way. That's not like mean, but
Hmm.
like, this is an inside joke.
Yeah. Sometimes
And
he'll be
the
like, baby, can I just say something? So I really love you. You're just the best ever. Just like light of my life, and I'm like starting to giggle at this point. Like, all right, what's the criticism? Like, it's obviously coming, but like he's like really trying to compliment sandwich it.
yeah.
So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if that works anymore, the compliment sandwich, just because like when you hear that,
Just like, all
and
right,
it's
here's the
that
bread.
tone that you're leading into something, right? I really love you. You're great at so many things. However, and you're like, oh, just get to, just fine. Just tell me,
And
like, just rip the
he does it
band-aid
in a
off.
way that's aiming to get me to laugh. It's like
Uh-huh.
kind of absurdist.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But yeah, no, I know that is the problem with the compliment sandwich is that you're just like, all right, I get it. That was the bread. What's the actual criticism?
Meat, yeah.
Yeah.
So use that with caution. The last tip from the Gottman method is that instead of stonewalling, which is like a shutdown, like if someone is so dysregulated and upset that they kind of shut out the other person, stop talking, and or like even give them the like more of like a cold shoulder.
Hmm.
Um, the antidote to that is self-soothing and then
Hmm.
re-engaging in a genuine way. So John Gottman said that he thinks that he could solve most couples fights by insisting on a 20-minute break. So taking a 20-minute breather physiologically is a good amount of time that on average people can calm down to a level where they can re-engage and talk in a more productive way. So, I mean, even if you want to do like a, hey, we are in this together against this explosive pattern of fighting. Let's do the 20 minutes and like, let's just cue each other when we need to do it. So just like literally set a timer, look at the clock, and like go take a walk or take a break for 20 minutes and then see what happens. Just like notice how the conversation changes after that break.
I guess I get a little bit skeptical of like his suggestions sometimes because it's like, okay, the antidote to defensiveness is taking accountability. It's like, yeah, but if you have struggles with defensiveness, it's going to be really hard to just like Like it's something that is you need to like really learn over time. There's some, I mean, that is the antidote, right? Is like, okay, but first you have to notice it. Like, okay, I'm at risk of getting defensive, and that is at risk of meaning that I'm just gonna have to spend all day tomorrow apologizing. Or like, it's at risk of breaking down this relationship. So I need a really compelling reason to want to not do this. Okay, like I'm gonna fake it till I make it, like try to validate whatever I can validate. I guess I just like a lot of times people, they have good reasons for being defensive or for stonewalling or for, any of these things. And it feels like when I suggest timeouts to my clients, A, they don't take them. Or B, and I teach them all the rules, right? You got to come back. You got to set a time, like you got to set a time for coming back. Just tell the person where you're going to be, like all of these things. And I don't know, it just either doesn't happen or it's not enough. Um, because in the moment, right? Like in the moment when you're angry, you just want to annihilate. And it's really hard to get into your head and say, this isn't gonna go where I want it to go. Like I think low level exploders, yeah, like I don't know. Absolutely. If you are stonewalling, it probably means you're in a kind of a freeze response. And so you need to be able to soothe your nervous system to be able to re-engage.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, yeah, I think that like thinking about the goal is helpful,
mhm,
right? Like you don't want to go from defending yourself to like taking all the blame for no reason. You want to be like, all right, it is not going to go anywhere if I spend all this time denying everything that person's saying that hurts their
mhm.
feelings and blaming them. Oh, I didn't do that. I didn't mean that. You were the one, right? Like that's not going to help.
Yeah.
Like there might be a fear of like if I admit to anything, I'm a losing battle. But if
Mhm,
you're thinking the goal is to make them feel better, figure out a better way, be right, even to say like, yeah, you're right, I did say that, and that
mhm.
wasn't nice. However, I have all these other feelings, right? Like to be fair
Yeah.
with the goal of like, okay, if I'm going to take this break, if I'm going to take accountability, my goal is to soften this explosion
Yeah.
and not get into a screaming, throwing, hitting match, right?
Right. Yeah. With breaks, I think that yeah, you have to tell them when you're going to come back or at least check in. You have to tell them where you're going, but also like for the love of God, do something distracting during that break. Because I think a thing that happens is people just sit there stewing
Yeah,
and then they come back and they think of 20 more reasons why they should be mad. But that's like
yeah.
so hard to do. So sometimes with breaks, I'm like, ugh, do I even want to suggest that?
I mean, I take like a day break, which is terrible for Alex. But I do it because I'm like, whatever. If I'm just gonna snap at him
Right.
and say all the things that like my anger wants me to say in this moment, then I'm just gonna be blamed, and this
Yeah.
it's gonna be entirely about how I'm gonna have to apologize, and I'm gonna be the bad guy. So
Mhm.
I'm going to go and spend a day in bed watching horror movies. That's like my thing, and texting you and texting
Mhm.
Caitlin and all her friends about how awful and all the naughty thing, all the anger thoughts, and text it to my friends, and then get some validation, and then and just I wait until I get from a place of anger to like my fear and sadness and hurt and shame, which is really what's driving my anger. And
Yeah.
then when I'm about to cry, or
Mhm.
when I do start crying, that's when I decide to ask Alex to talk again, because
That's a
then I
good
know
rule.
that I could talk to. I mean, it doesn't always go well, but it at least is way better than if I were to react in that moment. When I come to him and say, like, I'm really hurt,
Yeah.
and I'm crying and not like angry, I think that goes
Uh-huh.
differently at least. So
Yeah. No, I like that. Um, I think the problem is some people won't, their emotion won't go down. Like it won't switch. They'll keep the anger alive because it's too hard to be vulnerable. It's too threatening to be vulnerable. And so they'll refuse to go into softness, which I do think is going to be more likely with men. And it's not because men are terrible, but because our society has told men they're not allowed to be soft and they're definitely not allowed to cry. So, but I do really like that rule in general of saying when I'm in this emotional state, it's not going to be effective. So I'm not going to engage until I'm at the real emotion that underlies it.
Hmm.
Problem is, if the anger is really justified, that's a pretty tough rule to follow because
Then to really think about, what is the goal here? What do I
yeah.
want out of this? Like, do I want to defend myself? Do I want to point out an unfairness?
Hmm.
Well, you're not going to do that as effectively in the heat of the moment. Then, if you have a 20-minute break, chill out, really craft your words, maybe talk to a friend, talk to a coach or therapist, work out all the feelings and really figure out what you want to say,
Hmm.
right? Think about it as like, not just like, how do I become a vulnerable puddle again, but like, what do I really need? And how do I want this to turn out? And what's the best way
Right.
to get there?
Yeah. Yeah. If you are somebody who goes to contempt, so yes, the antidote is appreciation and gratitude. But I would try to think about what feels so good about contempt and understand that is the horseman that has the worst outcomes. So if you are stuck in that place, know that your relationship is threatened if that's where you are. And sometimes it's not terrible to have contempt, but it might mean that you're in a wrong relationship. Like you should not, because being at the other end of contempt is terrible. Feeling contempt for your partner is terrible. So right, it's like, what is the function of this, right? Is this keeping me safe in some way? Is this keeping me from being hurt by my partner in some way? Am I genuinely disgusted by my partner? In which case, like, that's a sign that something needs to change.
Yeah.
About your relationship configuration. Or how much access you should be having to that person. So if it's really, really a struggle to come up with things that you appreciate about your partner or your friend, then really think about that.
Yeah. Yeah. That led to my divorce.
Yeah. 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 And then stonewalling, I mean, so that is maybe an indication that you're in a bit of a freeze response. Going to self-soothe can be really helpful. Figuring out what kind of communication from your partner would help you not go into that, like, you know, shut down, frozen state is really important. So yeah, so I think if we wrap here with tips, Kivi, do you have a resource for us?
Yeah. In fact, I do. So again, I'll link the guide to de-escalating emotional explosions. It kind of lists out a lot of things that we talk about here, but in a PDF file that you can save and refer to it when you guys are exploding. So
Amazing. Will Kibby, I don't want to explode to you if we don't get any 5-star ratings on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. So I'm gonna ask for, I feel like our listeners are dickheads if they don't do that. And so in order, I don't know, I'm losing the thread of this. We'll see you guys next week. By accessing this podcast, I acknowledge that the hosts of this podcast make no warranty, guarantee, or representation as to the accuracy or sufficiency of the information featured in this podcast. The information, opinions, and recommendations presented in this podcast are for general information only, and any reliance on the information provided in this podcast is done at your own risk. This podcast and any and all content or services available on or through this podcast are provided for general, non-commercial informational purposes only and do not constitute the practice of medical or any other professional judgment, advice, diagnosis, or treatment, and should not be considered or used as a substitute for the independent professional judgment, advice, diagnosis, or treatment of a duly licensed and qualified healthcare provider. In case of a medical emergency, you should immediately call 911. The hosts do not endorse, approve, recommend, or certify any information, product, process, service, or organization presented or mentioned in this podcast, and information from this podcast should not be referenced in any way to imply such approval or endorsement.